you get to? Yeah.
So my question is, the Carters, because these days, and boy, I'm not trying to draw parallels, but there is one, and I'm not going to sit here and say I know the complexities of what's going on in AEW or what their financial situation looks like, and blah blah blah. But I think everybody knew going in, if you're going to start a wrestling company, it's got to be a long-term proposition. You're going to have some long-term thinking, and most businesses lose money in the first year or two or three, and then they get going, and then hey, they can recover some of that initial investment. That's not uncommon. But I wanted to ask, from your perspective, did the Carters get that? Did they know this was going to be a long-term play and a long-term investment? Did you know right up front, hey, they're in it for the long haul. They understand they're going to shoulder some losses for $2 or $3 million a year. But they think when we get to this point, and we know that eventually TNA does, but do you think that Bob and Janice were tuned into that right up front?
So before they signed the deal, which all went down Labor Day weekend of 2002, a couple of conversations rushed. But over the next year or 2 years, when you understand Panda Energy International, but more importantly, Bob Carter, the world that he comes from, a Texas Wildcatter. And Conrad, you'll appreciate this from a business perspective. When you're in the oil business, you can drill and get all the I's dotted and T's crossed and sink hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, and you can come up with a goose egg, like zero, that it's all gone. Your digging is you hit a dry hole. And you can do that once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can do that a whole lot. If you hit one hole, you know what the return is on that. It's just so that's the mindset that Bob was born and raised on long before wrestling came around. That he completely understood that I think, and look, he kind of alluded to this in a couple of years. I'll say in a way attracted to it. He respected that when I went out there, he looked at a father son and, oh, wait a minute. Okay. The son has a third more money or 2/3 of the money put up more than his father in this deal. And it's his own money. Okay. He believes in this concept and so does his old man, or his old man's crazy and just supporting the son. But regardless, it wasn't just Richard Scrushy money. It was our money. And then he understood, okay, Scrushy comes from Hell South. They were rocking and rolling. Richard Scrushy at the time that everything went south was the number 3 or 4 highest paid CEO in the world. That, okay, this is kind of the investment mindset. I'm kind of trying to paint a picture, Connie, is that not only yes, but hell yes, he knew that he wasn't gonna put $1 million or 2 in and pull the slot machine and here it comes, 777s, and we're just gonna walk off into the sunset. Did he want that? Did he press for that? Did he handle everything with a kid glove? Did he really squeeze the money when we started? And I think because of the entertainment world, and maybe they do that in the energy business, but when we started making money with Spike, went from 1 to 2 hours, he was really taking it off the top because he did want his money back, because he had 400, 500 Panda Energy International investors that got into Panergy for the energy business. And now all of a sudden, okay, they're in the wrestling business. Well, let me show these guys a return on the investment, that it's already coming in. That we're 3 years into this and we're already getting money back. That doesn't happen in the energy business all the time. Like I said, they can invest in power plants around the world, and I'll say in oil opportunities around the world, and come up with nothing. They made their billions in power plants, in building power plants, and you had to line that up geographically and government wise and all kinds of stuff. But I say all this to say, Conrad, Bob was well aware that there was a risk, and he more than had deep enough pockets to weather any storm. Very obvious.
Let's talk a little bit about how this switch is going to affect some of the talent. When you're going to abandon the weekly pay-per-views, once upon a time, these guys could get 8 or 9 or 10 dates a month because they're going to be doing stuff in Orlando and they're going to be doing the weekly pay-per-views. But if we're going to move away from the weekly pay-per-views and now it's just going to be monthly, there's a concern that some of these guys are going to lose 3 or 4 or maybe more bookings. And if they're paid on a per appearance deal, that greatly affects their income. I understand you're trying to run a business and let's not make their problem become your problem and all that sort of thing. But how much heartburn were you hearing about from the talent that, hey, does this move mean I'm going to get less dates? Am I going to make less money? That's a natural concern, I think. Chat me up. What, if anything, did you hear about this?
Well, remember I said talent didn't like change, and they had the comfort level and the asylum. We got it up and rock and rolling. The audience was good, and they just the groove of it all. But when we started Fox Sports Net, the bulk of the talent went from 4 paydays a month, 4 Wednesdays, to 8 paydays. A Wednesday and a Thursday. And then all of a sudden, as soon as we get that started, oh no, we're gonna go from 4 to 8 back to 5, and knowing that things were in flux, oh, that may not work out. We may not get on every pay-per-view because there may or may not be less slots. And hey, we're here that Hall and Nash may be being a part of this, or this talent, or that talent, or is Hogan coming in? Again, the talent relations component, as I look back on my TNA years, the talent relations component was a nonstop juggling match. We'll call it investor relations. And I just kind of talked about in depth about from a financial perspective, just the Panda energy, the background, the mindset, the pockets they had, the understanding, but which went all fine and dandy. But when you started layering in family dynamics and relationships, and we've talked about this on all kind of different angles, that threw a whole nother monkey wrench into the relationship. So as I look back on talent relations and investor relations, those were the nonstop ebb and flow, and it never ever stopped. And they were always super challenging because shit, I mean, we've talked about it. We went from 4 dates to 8 dates, back to 5. Not long after that, here comes Spikes, and now we're going to do the Spike show, which in the talent's mind, okay, now we can probably get a bump in pay. Oh my God, there's not enough spots on the card. Oh, okay, so we're going to add the second hour. So now we got 2 hours. Oh, wait a minute. We're doing 2 tapings in one night, so we're just going to pay one on 2 shows. Conrad, it was a challenge.
Let's talk about DirecTV here for a minute. I know there was a moment in time here where there was a little bit of an impasse between TNA and DirecTV, and even now with the decision coming out that hey, we're going to move away from weekly and we're going to go to monthly. There's a report in the Torch that says, hey, there's still no update on the DirecTV stalemate. What exactly was the crux of that dispute, if there was one? Like, why weren't you week in, week out on DirecTV?
You're talking about on the Wednesdays, right?
Yeah, what was the dispute and why did it take so long to resolve?
Frank Romano, and he was the CEO from In Demand. We hired him. He came to work for the company. We were a pay-per-view only company. Bob Carter wanted someone who knew that business inside and out from the other side of the fence. Brought him in. Well, Frank had dealt with In Demand and Direct and everything that went with it. Direct TV has always been the powerhouse in satellite TV. They just delivered a different service. They viewed their real estate different, a premium service. Their promotional, they prided themselves in being able to promote better to their consumer than Dish or cable. And they wanted a guarantee that we had to hit. It's financial, Conrad. I'm probably going a long way around. That if we didn't hit, they wanted to keep up in our thresholds, that we had to hit a certain amount. And if we didn't, they could take not a lot, but a little more. And Romano was pushing back and saying, hey, we are a startup company. We need every dime we can get. And they held all the keys to their kingdom. Okay, if y'all don't want to sign our deal, we don't want your product. Well, okay. So we played hardball. They just, again, they had to meet their bottom line, and they were had much more leverage than us, and they knew it. And so they played hardball as hard as they could, and then they would say, okay, we're good. Put your product on. Because at the end of the day, you know, I don't say it's free money, but we were revenue for them, and they wanted it. But again, if you back up even further, look at the revenue they lost overnight when WCW shut down. Lots of money.
And ECW. I mean, no more ECW pay-per-views, no more WCW pay-per-views. And I realized that, you know, at different times, WCW was selling a huge multiple of what ECW was. But you would think, you know, given all the money they've made through the years with wrestling on pay-per-view, they would welcome more. But as you said, they're the big dog. They get to make the rules.